Hey everyone, this is day 8 of 31 days through Ezekiel and Daniel. There are passages in Ezekiel where the Lord speaks as judge, and there are passages where he speaks as husband. Yet in chapters 21 to 23, both voices converge in the same unfolding reality, where justice and covenant love are not in tension, but in collision. Chapter 21 opens with imagery that is impossible to soften. A sword is sharpened and also polished. Ezekiel 21:9. The repetition is intentional, the emphasis unavoidable. This is not merely symbolic language detached from history. Babylon stands at the edge of Judah's collapse. But behind Babylon stands the sovereignty of God, ensuring that what unfolds is not random devastation, but covenant consequence. The Lord declares, "It is sharpened to make a dreadful slaughter." Ezekiel 21:10. And the weight of that statement is meant to be felt, not analyzed from a distance. Yet, even here, judgment is not portrayed as detached or impersonal. The prophet is commanded, "Sigh, son of man," with a breaking heart, Ezekiel 21:6, revealing that divine judgment does not eliminate grief, it carries it. The sorrow is real because the covenant was real. As A.W. Tozer writes, the God of holiness is not a God of indifference. Holiness, in its purity, never becomes emotionally detached from what it judges. The chapter moves further into reversal. Remove the turban and take off the crown. Exalt the humble and humble the exalted. Ezekiel 21:26. What is being undone is not only political structure, but assumed stability. Every human seat of authority is brought under divine evaluation. Leadership, no matter how established, does not stand outside of accountability. As John Bevere warns, authority without the fear of the Lord becomes self destructive. The throne in Jerusalem does not fall because God loses control, but precisely because he refuses to relinquish it. In chapter 22, it deepens the indictment by moving from national collapse to internal corruption, exposing the layered breakdown of a city that still carried the appearance of covenant identity. Violence, oppression, moral corruption, and spiritual compromise are no longer isolated issues. They have become the atmosphere. Her priests have violated my law and profaned my holy things. Ezekiel 22:26. What should have preserved holiness instead participated in its erosion, and leadership itself became part of the wound rather than its restraint. Then comes one of the most sobering statements in the book. So I sought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land, but I found no one. Ezekiel 22:30. The silence here is heavier than accusation. God is not only judging sin, he is searching for intercession. As James Gall observes, intercession is standing where judgment and mercy meet. There was space for mercy, but no one occupied it. Chapter 23 intensifies the grief through allegory that is deliberately confronting. Two sisters, Aholah and Oholiba, represent Samaria and Jerusalem. And the language used is intentionally severe because the reality it describes is not surface level failure, but covenant betrayal. God does not frame their spiritual condition as mere misdirection, but as violated intimacy. Matthew Henry notes, spiritual whoredom is the most grievous breach of covenant. This issue is not simply that they wandered, it is that they pursued what they had already been delivered from. Even after witnessing judgment in Samaria, Jerusalem does not return. Instead, she deepens the pattern, becoming more entrenched in compromise. She became more corrupt than her sister in her lust and in her harlotry. Ezekiel 23:11. History, in this case, did not produce humility, it produced escalation. As Jeremiah Johnson writes, when warnings do not produce repentance, they intensify accountability. The imagery of the cup that follows, the cup of horror and desolation, Ezekiel 23:33, is not poetic exaggeration, but a picture of consequence fully consumed and fully experienced. And yet, even here, Ezekiel's broader message remains intact. Judgment is never God's final intention. Exposure is not an endpoint, but a means of restoring what has been corrupted beyond recognition. The sword is drawn, but not impulsively. It is drawn because covenant love refuses to coexist indefinitely with betrayal. These chapters leave us with a sobering clarity that cannot be reduced or softened. God's holiness is active, not abstract. Leadership carries intensified accountability. Intimacy with God cannot coexist with sustained compromise. The sword is drawn, not as abandonment, but as a severe mercy of a covenant God who refuses to allow destruction to remain hidden beneath devotion.